I want you to look at your desk right now, or look at that note app on your phone. You know, the one that you open when you have, ideas there at 11 o'clock at night. I know what's in there. It's a graveyard. It's a graveyard of good ideas that never saw the light of day. You have the notebook full of $1 million strategies. You have a whiteboard in your office covered in arrows and circles for the perfect marketing funnel. You have a Trello board with 50 cards sitting in the to-do column that haven't moved in 6 months. You have the perfect plan for your website. You have the perfect plan for the hiring process and the perfect plan for how you're going to finally fire that one nightmare client. So let me ask you a question that is going to hurt a little. How much of that actually exists in the real world? We tell ourselves we are, quote unquote, strategizing. We tell ourselves that we are preparing. We say, I'm just, doing my research, AT. I'm measuring twice so I can cut once. But if we are being radically transparent here for a moment, we're hiding. We're hiding behind the shield of perfectionism. We are terrified that if we launch something imperfect, we will look foolish. We are scared that if the font isn't right, or the audio isn't studio quality, or the proposal isn't poetic, people will find out we are frauds. So we polish, and we tweak, and we wait. And while you're waiting, someone else, someone with half your talent, half your IQ, and a quarter of your plan, it's out there winning. They are taking your market shares. They are signing your clients. Why? Because they understand the one law that trumps all others in business. Action precedes perfection. If you are tired of being the smartest person in the room with an empty bank account, today is your wake-up call. You don't need a better plan. You need to start walking. I'm Johnny Terra, and this is the Trust Engine. If you are a service entrepreneur trapped by the hustle, you have been sold a lie. The hustle promises freedom, but delivers a prison. I know because I built a successful CPA firm working 16-hour days out of a pantry. I learned the hard way that grit gets you started, but systems will get you free. I'm Johnny Terra, and this is the Trust Engine podcast. We're here to build a service business that scales like a machine and sells like a person. Let's get to work. To understand the power of imperfect action, I have to take you back to 2012. This was my welcome to the real world moment. I had just graduated from Wayland Baptist. I had landed my first real job as a staff accountant. I had the degree, I had the suit, and I had the job offer. But I was missing one critical component of the American dream. I didn't have a car. Now, for those listening in from New York or London, you might not get this, but in Texas, not having a car is like not having legs. Everything is so spread out. Public transport in the area I lived was non-existent. So the perfect plan, the smart, logical CPA plan, would have been to wait. It would have, been to decline the job start date, to say, hey, I need 3 months to save up money, buy a car, get my insurance sorted out, and then I can show up as a professional. But I didn't have 3 months. I had to pay rent. I needed the paycheck like right now. So I looked at Google Maps. My apartment was 12 blocks away from the office. 12 blocks. On a map, that looks like nothing. It's like an inch on the screen space. But 12 blocks in Texas summer is not a casual stroll. It's an oven. We're talking 95, 100 degrees of dry, dusty heat. The kind of heat that hits you like an opening a furnace door. It sucks the moisture right out of you before you even make it to the sidewalk. So here was my routine. And I want you to picture this because it was ridiculous. Every morning, I would wake up, get fully dressed, business casual, slacks, iron shirt, tie, looking the part of a successful accountant. Oh, but not the feet. I would lace up my beat up running shoes. Then I would take my nice, polished dress shoes and I would throw them into this old mesh laundry bag I had kept from my basketball days. And I would start walking. I remember the sensation of that heat. By block 4, I could feel the sweat trickling down my back underneath my starched shirt. I remember the cars whizzing past me, people in their air conditioning bubbles, listening to the radio, sipping their coffee. And there I was, this tall guy, power walking down the side of the road, clutching a mesh laundry bag, sweating through his suit. I had this internal monologue running the whole time. You look like an idiot, Johnny. This is so unprofessional. What if a client sees you? What if your boss drives by and realizes he hired a guy who can't even afford a Honda? I would get to the office building 30 minutes early, specifically so I could sneak around the back to the service entrance. I would find a spot at the concrete steps near the door. I would sit there, catch my breath, wipe the sweat off my face with a towel I brought, and switch my shoes. Running shoes go in the back, dress shoes goes in the feet. Hide the bag under the desk, start the day. Was it dignified? No. Was it comfortable? Absolutely not. Was it a perfect system? Far from it. But here's the truth that changed my life. It was effective. I didn't wait for the Chevy. I used my tennis shoes. I took the 70% solution, the messy, sweaty, imperfect solution, and I executed. And you know what happened? I thought people would judge me. I thought they would think I was less than. But my coworkers noticed. They saw this guy walking in the rain. They saw the guy changing his shoes. They didn't see unprofessional. They saw hunger. They saw someone who showed up no matter what the obstacle was. That imperfect action built more trust in my character than a luxury car ever could have. That 12-block walk taught me the lesson that most entrepreneurs spend a lifetime trying to learn. And this is the pivot point for you today. You cannot steer a parked car. Think about the physics of that. When a car is parked, you can turn the steering wheel all you want. You can crank it to the left and you can crank it to the right. You can plan your route perfectly. But the car doesn't change direction. It just sits there, grinding its tires into the pavement. To change direction, you need momentum. Most of you listening right now, you are sitting in the driveway. You're gripping the steering wheel until your knuckles are white. You're checking the mirrors. You are adjusting the seats. You are programming the GPS. And you're waiting for all the traffic to clear before you even pull out. You're waiting for the perfect time. Oh, I will launch my podcast when I have the perfect microphone. Oh, I will hire my assistant when I have the perfect standard operating procedure all written down. I'll start selling when the website looks like Nike.com. This is a lie. Perfectionism is a lie. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a tuxedo. It looks fancy. It makes you feel responsible, but it is keeping you stuck. When I was watching the movie Ender's Game recently, it's a great movie, by the way, on leadership, there was this moment where Colonel Graff was talking about saving Earth. The stakes literally could not be higher. And he says something that stopped me cold. You don't go when you're ready. You go when you're ready enough. Ready enough. This is the essence of command. It is the essence of business. If I had waited until I was ready to commute, I would have lost a job. If I had waited until my office was ready before starting my firm, I would have never had worked out of that pantry. If I had waited until I was ready to lead, I would never have become a partner with 20 people under my care. We have a rule for this at the GMAT philosophy. It's called the 70% rule. It comes from the Marine Corps, and it's a high-level leaders use it everywhere. It says this: if you have 70% of the information and 70% of the plan, you go. Waiting for that last 30%, waiting for certainty, comes at a cost. And that cost is speed. In business, speed is life. Speed is oxygen. Why? Because when you execute, you get something that planning can never give you. You get data. When I walked those 12 blocks, I learned the route. I learned which street had shade. I learned which dogs barked. And I learned exactly how long it took. If I had stayed home planning, I would have learned nothing. You are treating your business like a final exam. You think you only get one shot, so it has to be perfect. But business isn't a test. It's a laboratory. You're supposed to experiment. You are supposed to break things. You are supposed to be the crash test dummy. So how do we systematize this? I don't want you to just feel inspired. I want you to change how you work today. How do we stop overthinking and start walking? I want to give you 2 specific systems to dismantle perfectionism. System number 1 is the intentional operator's weekly blueprint. Okay, output over time. Most people plan their week based on time. They fill slots on the calendar. I want you to plan your week based on output. Every Sunday night, I sit down and I ask myself one question. What are the 3 things that, if completed, will make this week a success? Not 20, 3. But here's the kicker, and here's the GMAT twist. One of them must be an imperfect launch. One of those 3 things must be something you ship before you feel 100% ready. Maybe it's sending a proposal to a prospect even though you're not sure about the pricing yet. Just send it and see what they say. You're going to get the data. Maybe it's posting a video even though the lighting is bad. Post it. See if the content resonates. Maybe it's just having a difficult conversation with an employee. Do it. Don't script it for another week. Force yourself to ship imperfect work. It breaks the paralysis. It proves to your brain that the world will not end if there is a typo. And system number 2, it is the minimal viable action, MVA. This is the tool I use every single day. Whenever you feel stuck on a big project, like building a new website or hire a general manager, your brain shuts down. Why? Because the task is too big. It's too scary. I want you to shrink the task until it becomes ridiculous not to do it. This is the minimal viable action. Well, let's look at examples. Here's the goal. Build a website. Well, here's the trap. You spend weeks researching designers and looking at the color palettes. Here's the MVA, the minimal viable action. Open a Google Docs and write the headline for the homepage. That's it. Just a headline. Here's a second goal. You want to hire an admin? Here's a trap. You're worried about payroll, taxes, and interviews. Here's the MVA. Take 5 minutes and write a list of 5 tasks you hate doing. That's your job description. Here's the third goal. To get to work without a car. Here's the trap. You worry about looking unprofessional. Here's the MVA. Put on the tennis shoes and open the front door. Action fuels action. The hardest part of the 12 block wasn't at block 6 or block 10. The hardest part was the first step out the door. Once I was moving, momentum took over. So here's a resource. To help you with this, I have a simple 1-page worksheet called the execution audit. It forces you to list your parked cars, those projects that you're stalling on. And it forces you to identify the MVA for each. It's the exact tool I use to get unstuck. If you want it, just email me at hello@trustenginepodcast.com with the subject line action. I want to leave you with this vision of the future. When you adopt the 12-block walk mindset, the fear disappears. You stop looking for this perfect path because you realize you can handle the terrain. You realize that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is just data collection. You stop worrying about looking foolish and start obsessing about getting feedback. You become this intentional operator that I've been talking about. The person who moves, the person who ships, the person who runs a marathon while performing their own heart and lung transplant. Let me say that again. The person who runs a marathon while performing their own heart and lung transplant. And that is where freedom lives. Freedom doesn't come from having a perfect plan that predicts the future. Freedom comes from the confidence that whatever happens, you have the momentum to figure it out on the fly. So here's your challenge. I want you to identify one project you have been planning for too long. One thing you're waiting to be perfect. And I want you to launch that 70% version of it by Friday. Send the ugly proposal, post the unpolished video, launch the beta version. Get in the arena. Get your shoes dirty. Start walking. I'm Johnny Terra. This is the Trust Engine. Let's get to work, guys. Wow, we cover a lot today, guys. But remember, action over theory. Don't just listen, execute. Go build the machine so you don't have to be the machine. If you found value, the best way to support the Trust Engine podcast is to leave a rating and review on your platform. And if you know of another entrepreneur trapped in the hustle, share this episode with them. You can find the show notes and the systems we discuss here at trustenginepodcast.com.